Everybody? Good morning. We still have a few people who are coming in the back, but we'll go ahead and get started. It's just after 11 o'clock. So welcome to our May Town Hall meeting. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Chip Warner, CEO here at Vincent Hall, and appreciate you all coming out today. Looks like we have a pretty full house, which is great. Love to see that. I just have a couple of quick announcements, and then I'm going to spend some time, as I mentioned in the communication that went out earlier this week around our restructuring. I believe we have some handouts that we provided. Michelle? Good to see you, Michelle.
Yes, Michelle.
Back there, okay. All right, for some of the smaller print. So if anybody needs one, raise your hand and Michelle will get those to you. So you have, again, some of the detail there. But a couple of quick announcements before we jump into that. We are attempting today to video the meeting. So Debbie is over here with her camera, and we've gotten some feedback around a desire to record and then be able to provide the meetings either through Channel 970 and or on the portal. So we're going to see how it works. There are some technical complications around doing that in a way that makes it high quality enough to be of value. So I would appreciate the feedback on that, and we'll give it a shot, and we'll probably refine that over time. But love the idea of people who aren't able to make it to the meeting still being able to access the content otherwise. But you still have to come to the meeting. You don't want to have a meeting where nobody shows up because they're all going to watch it on TV. So one other quick thing I wanted to mention, we have on Monday, May 20th, we have the annual meeting of the NMCGRF board. So the board will be coming out. They'll be doing a town hall meeting in the ballroom in the community building at 2:30 p.m. with a reception to follow. So this is the first time we've been able to do it in person in a few years. And so for those of you who may not have had a chance to meet the board members, we have a really terrific board, and we hope you'll have a chance to come out and hear a little bit more about what they do, as well as get a chance to meet them personally, both in the presentation and Q&A, as well as in the reception afterwards. So again, that's Monday, May 20th at 2:30 in the community building ballroom. All right, so next I did want to jump into the organizational structure update. And a lot of this information will be repetitive from the memo that was sent out and the email that was distributed. But we want to make sure that we get the message out in several different forums so that if there are questions, we can answer those and address those. So first of all, I just wanted to talk a little bit about why we're doing this and what the goals are. And so really with this, we wanted to take a step back after we had the transition of our CFO, as well as the writing of our strategic plan, to take a look and say what's the structure we best need in place in order to meet the goals of our current needs, to make sure we can focus on the important elements of our strategic plan, and just make sure we've got our operations integrated across the community to make sure we're providing consistent, high-quality services in a continuous and efficient way across the campus. And so rather than do these in pieces, we waited until the strategic plan was in place and then had an opportunity with the CFO transition to go ahead and do this. So it'll allow us to provide focus for a few of the key areas that have been identified as needs, both through feedback we've received from residents, from staff, and from the strategic planning work. And again, it supports execution of both the strategic and master plan. And Rob, in a few minutes, will be talking more about updates on the master plan. I think it's important to note that there were no additions or reductions of staff related to the restructuring. Instead, it was a reallocation of responsibilities and a creation of bandwidth from some of our leaders to engage in some of these key focus areas, which we'll talk about in a minute. But nobody's leaving, nobody's coming on as a result of this. It's just a way, we think, to operate more efficiently and effectively. And the changes that we've made are effective immediately. And we don't anticipate additional changes. So this is not phase one of a multi-phase plan of restructuring. This is really what we think we need to have in place to move forward. Certainly, if there are things that we miss along the way, we may make some small refinements, but that's not our expectation at this point. And really, bottom line is the goal of doing this is not just to fiddle with leadership positions because it's fun, and we need to change for change's sake, but how do we best support the needs of our community and our residents today and going forward. So, and again, if you don't have a handout, raise your hand. Annalise is coming around. I know this is probably hard to read from where you're sitting, but I wanted to talk about my direct reports and then Rob's direct reports. I'll talk about mine first and then turn it over to Rob for his. So for me, so Rick Mazza, who we introduced at the VHRA meeting, is our new Chief Financial Officer with the oversight of all the things that a CFO does, and we're very happy to have him here. We've expanded Rob Rowe's responsibilities, and as a result of that, have promoted him to Chief Operating Officer, so congratulations to Rob. And he'll talk about what some of those expanded responsibilities are in just a moment. Winoka is our Senior Director of Human Resources and continues in that role with a very robust body of work, as does Stephanie, our Senior Director of Marketing. Michelle Corona, our Senior Director of Philanthropy and Engagement, and where you see red here, these are new or expanded responsibilities. So Michelle, as you all know, oversees our philanthropy and some of our board relations work, community engagement, our communications broadly, public relations, and we've expanded her focus on external social media, so how our what we do here gets out on those important platforms. And if you're not on our Facebook site, please make sure you sign up for that, because there's some really great information that I think speaks to what a vibrant and engaged community that we are on Facebook. I think we've got a great social media presence there. And we want to create a similar presence on LinkedIn, which is a primary social media platform for recruiting employees to work here at Benson Hall, as well as another platform for us to just let people know who we are, which we're all proud of. And then also looking at expanding the work that we do in volunteerism. There's already some work that happens that Michelle helps facilitate, and a lot of you are involved with some great things that are going on with volunteerism with our partners in the community and community members who come here, but looking to expand that even more. I'll skip Hyder for a second. Michelle Parra, as y'all know, is our executive assistant, so she has the unenviable job of providing administrative support from me and Rick. And also, Michelle just does, as you all know, a lot of things around the community. Support for special events, resident troubleshooting, and a lot of board engagement work and 100 other things that come onto her desk every day. Hyder is in a new role as the Senior Director of Technology and Program Strategy. And one of the things that was really clear to us as we were getting input through the strategic planning process and our other mechanisms of getting feedback from residents and others is the need to have some focus on our technology work and making sure that we had somebody who was on point to help coordinate our technical resources around the campus, make sure that we're focused on our strategy and our execution of that work. So this is not a technical role per se, this is more of a facilitative role, and making sure that the technical expertise that we hire outside the community is focused on what we need and delivering on those expectations. So when that was split between several people's jobs and was only a small percentage of what people were doing, I don't think we had the focus we needed on it, so this will provide some additional bandwidth and resource to focus on that. In addition, Hyder is going to help support some of our execution of our short-term and long-term strategic planning needs through evaluating and helping to implement new products, programs, and services, through helping us administer cross-community activities and initiatives. These are things like making sure that our resident and employee satisfaction surveys are executed and followed up on. Our knowledge management across the community, our policies and procedures, there's 100 things that we work with across the community that we need a single owner of. And also providing support to Rob through the master planning work that we're going to be engaged in, which again he'll talk about more in a minute, and risk management. So lots of stuff on Hyder's plate. This is a dynamic role that will probably evolve in its scope and focus over time. And with Hyder's focus on this work, we've reallocated some of his responsibilities today. And so I'll turn it over to Rob to talk some more about that, unless there are any questions about this. But
looking at the list of things that Hyder is going to be involved in, the administration of cross-community activities and initiatives, that's an interesting thing. When you look down under Annalise, she's also going to take on resident activities. And so that brings up the question of what activities are we talking about, and where does Myrna fit into the equation, who used to run a lot of the activities?
Yep.
Who does she work for?
Yeah, you're getting into the next slide, which Rob will cover in just a second. But in activities, there is different than resident activities. These are things that we do across campus. We have things that we do administratively. Again, resident and employee satisfaction is one example of that, where we are we need somebody who's consistently owning that across the campus to make sure that we're getting communication out, that we're reviewing the results, and that we're responding to an action plan. And so again, we haven't had a consistent owner of that, so he'll own that for both residents and employees from both a process and a follow-up perspective. So activities is maybe the wrong word there if it's confusing with resident activities. But let me turn it over to Rob so we can get more to your specific question, bud.
Good morning, all. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rob Rowe. I am now the Chief Operating Officer, which is interesting to say. So first and foremost, I want to thank Chip for this opportunity to continue to be here and to work with you and work for you, the residents here. I also want to thank the senior leadership team, my colleagues, as well as the operations team. This team works really hard to make sure that we're meeting the needs of every resident, and I'm very humbled to be a part of this team. So thank you all. This is a great opportunity. To jump into what our team is taking on and different responsibilities, some of the titles have changed, and we want to make sure that those staff members have an understanding of what they're doing, so that's why some of their titles have changed. Denise, for example, she will now be the Senior Director of Property Management. On top of what she already does, her maintenance, engineering, housekeeping, and in the capital projects, she will also be taking on security, transportation, concierge service, front desk, and purchasing and inventory. We've talked a lot about purchasing and inventory over the last 18 months, and now we're putting it in a home so we can focus on getting that initiative moving. Annalise will be taking on additional responsibility. Her title will be the Senior Director of Extended Care Resident Services. A part of that extended care, Annalise will now have the nursing team reporting to her. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the nursing team on the next slide. She will also have resident activities, social work, and pastoral care. We really looked at the pastoral care and the social work to have consistency services across the community. And putting all social services under one individual is the reason why we did that. Teresa Morgan is, again, she's going to continue with her clinical compliance. She's moving into quite a different role in the sense of Senior Director of Clinical Strategy and Services. So while she will continue to lead the clinic, she'll also be in a position to run audits and make sure that we're in compliance across our clinical field, in the clinic, but also at ABP and all the nursing areas. She will continue to keep clinical education, which as we speak, there's a large skills fair and CB for all staff. So a lot of the staff are upstairs right now on their skills fair. Infection control, health and wellness clinic. She will be expanding her role and added oversight for Vincent Hall at Home. She'll be looking into Vincent Hall at Home, the rehab services, Fitness and aquatics, that's the George area downstairs in the Minson Hall building. So she'll be leading that as well. Jasleen is now on the operations team. She now reports to me, and she's a part of our operations team. That's the dining services. She will continue to provide the dining services, the catering service, special events, and retail operations. We wanted to make sure that that operations team is working together to provide you the best service. And then Veronica Para, she's been promoted. She is now the resident services coordinator, and she's going to provide support to the operations team. I'm sorry if I'm moving around. I'm trying to be disciplined here and stand in one spot. So, Veronica is the resident services coordinator. She will be providing support to all of the operations team, resident communication. She'll continue to do the new resident orientation, and then resident troubleshooting. So when we know that there's going to be things that are going to come up, we're really looking for Veronica to direct those residents or needs in the right area so we can get those covered as quickly as possible. So. Other key notes that we want to talk about, Joyce Johnson has been promoted to the Director of Nursing. She is now the DON for the Arleigh Burke Pavilion and CB. Fafa Beckley is the Assistant Administrator at TS. She will now also be leading the nursing team at TS. Myrna, I believe we just had a question about Myrna. Myrna has been promoted. She's now in Life Enrichments and Special Events Manager. She will provide oversight for activities across the community. So before it was mainly independent living, Myrna has expanded her responsibility and her expertise to now give that leadership and consistency of services throughout the entire community. We're really excited about that one. We're really excited about all of these. John Paul is the social services manager, and he will provide the leadership for all of the social work across the continuum. Again, consistency of services, and all of these are really exciting. And then Champella Brooks will be the concierge and transportation coordinator. She will help lead with Denise that concierge and transportation team. I believe that's it. This is back to you, right? Back to you. Oh, sure. Yes, sir. Sorry, I should have paused there. My apologies.
Not a problem, thanks. What's a little bit unclear is the difference between what Annalisa oversees relative to nursing and what Teresa Morgan does overlooking, I'll be finished in a second, health and wellness clinic. It seems like they're either partners or in competition with each other. I'm not sure who's who. And the other piece is Myrna's expanded activities. Is she going to have an assistant to do all the daily work she does now? And who does she report to? Myrna report to?
Thank you, Bud. I will take those questions one at a time. So the first question was, and if I forget the next, you'll just have to prod me a little bit. The first question was, is Teresa's role in competition with Annalisa's? So Teresa's role is, there's a strategy piece to this, and it's to help build that clinic and expand that services. And we've talked about that when we're talking about the licensing in Minson Hall. So that's really what she's going to be focusing on. She's also going to be providing oversight and audit compliance oversight for the nursing team. Annalise is going to be running the daily operations of the nurses team. So that's where the difference is Teresa's more in an audit compliance role, where Annalise is really day-to-day. Now, for Myrna, and I'm going to shut it, so the first question was, is Myrna going to get additional support?
Well, she did have a helper for a little while, then that person went away.
So we're still, as Chip said in the beginning, we did not eliminate any positions. Myrna has been promoted into this role, and for that, we will be adding her, we'll be backfilling what Myrna does, as well as there's still that half FTE that we need to get for support on her. We're still looking to fill those roles. And she'll be reporting, that's the other question, yes. She will be reporting to Annalise. Question in the back. Thank you, Gisley.
I don't know if I need an answer to this or not. Could you define, I'm looking under Teresa Morgan, clinical compliance there, clinical education and health and wellness clinic. Is there a bigger umbrella to what is meant by clinical? Is that overall the whole campus? And how does that compare to health and wellness clinic? Does
So,
that make sense?
It does make sense. What I will say is briefly, and I will touch on this in the master planning piece. So the current umbrella of the clinic is the location where it's at now and the services that it provides. There's a piece to this in the strategy piece that Teresa is going to be leading, and that is where do we want to be and how are we going to get there? And we're going to talk about that in master planning. What I will say is the current umbrella, we expect that to grow, and we're working through that. And that's why we really wanted to give the opportunity for people to have the bandwidth to really look at that and expand those roles.
And I'll just add to that so Teresa has oversight of what's called the Quality Assurance Performance Improvement Process, which is called QAPI colloquially, and that's it's a structure that exists in organizations like ours that provides overall oversight of the quality of healthcare that's delivered across the campus. And so Teresa will be in that leadership role in both an audit and a compliance and a coaching perspective to make sure that quality healthcare is being delivered consistently throughout the campus.
And if I could just add, that quality of care is on a scale, 5 being the best. We are at a 5. We have been at a 5 for quite some time now. So we want to make sure that we're maintaining that quality of care.
So if
It's a good question.
If there was an issue with a resident and this,
If a resident had a request or a complaint perhaps, who would they go to, Annalise or Teresa?
I would ask, what is the complaint about? If it's about maintenance, we're going to send her to Denise.
I know that. I'm talking about the healthcare, in the health and wellness.
For the health and wellness clinic, it's going to Teresa. The health and wellness clinic area is going to Teresa. If there's a concern in health or in the nursing area in ABP or CB, it goes to Annalise.
Yeah, I would say the other mechanism for that is our Health and Wellness Committee of the Resident Association, which Susan Osborne leads, who's a great partner with us. And if there are if there's an individual issue that needs to be addressed, then Teresa can help with that, or contact any of us and we get you in the right spot. If there's more of a systemic issue, then I think bringing it up through the association and having us address it that way would be good. So a couple of different mechanisms there.
Just wanted to be clear.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good question. Yep. Any other questions on this before we move to the next? Yes, in the back. Sure.
Hi. Number one, I'd just like to applaud this effort. I think it's a very smart, well thought out thing, and I especially want to applaud Myrna and Veronica, because they've been punching above their weight for a long, long time, and they really deserve this. And my other question is, though good as this is, I just hope we don't fall in love with it and are open to tweaking it when and if that becomes necessary.
Yeah, thank you, Sherm. Great comments, great point. And one thing, I'll get to that your last comment in just a second, but I would echo that one of the great things, one of the luxuries we have is a really great team here at Vincent Hall who are able and willing to take on more. And we really appreciate those who have agreed to do that. We applaud those who are taking on new roles and have been promoted, but we're in a position of strength to be able to do that. And to your point, Sherm, we also want to make sure this is new. We think we've thought through most of the potential issues and gaps. And the good thing is, again, everybody is staying here. So if there are gaps, then we have people here who know where the skeletons are, and we can find and address those. But yeah, we're going to be paying close attention to this, working with our resident association leaders, and if there are unexpected, unintended consequences that come up or gaps that appear, we'll work to shore those up as quickly as possible and tweak as we need to. We're in like with it. I would say we're not in love with it yet because we're at day 3. And one of the things we wanted to be, and this is probably related to Bud's question, if a resident has an issue and doesn't know where to go, where can they go for help? And as always, we have an excellent concierge staff at our front desks, and so residents can always go there first to ask questions on where to go or to have an issue addressed. And as a secondary support, we have Champella, Veronica, and Michelle, and their contact information is in the memo that we sent out and in the directory. So feel free to contact any of them. And of course, if you're still lost or can't get them, always reach out to me or another member of the leadership team. And we want to create pathways that you can get your issue addressed as efficiently as possible. And again, just a few final thoughts here. And this, I think, goes a little bit to what Bud said and what Sherm said. We've tried to be clear in the communication, but the activities is a great example of where we're using language that might be confusing. So please ask questions where you have them. And while we have made these changes effective immediately, we've got the transition support because, again, everybody is still here on that leadership team. So we'll shore those gaps up. And of course, recognize that there can be some initial confusion with change, and we just ask for your patience as we work through this. Your patience and your grace. I think, to Sherm's point, it's good change that will, in the long term, really serve our community well, but there are probably going to be a couple of bumps along the road, and we will do our best to smooth those out.
Sure.
Well, thank you very much for the brief and the information conveyed. I would like to add that our executive committee has established some really great working relationships with you and the staff, and that will certainly continue. And I would encourage, if there's issues for the residents, they can always go to one of our executive committee members in the area of their particular interest or suggestion or what have you, and then we'll convey that through that process to the staff. So we thank you for being open about this, and we'll work with you to make it a success.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great coda to this, and we are really fortunate to have strong working relationships with our resident leadership, and whether the issues are coming to us or to a member of one of the committees that's supported through the association, we'll work together to make sure we get clarity as quickly as possible. So I will stop there and ask if there are any other questions on this.
I have a question about all of the surveys and questionnaires that we filled out. Have they been taken into consideration with all of this planning? And also kind of a secondary question is, the overall planning is so good. And yet when we look at some of the down into the weeds, for example, the rehab services here, and the fitness and aquatic facilities and programs. I hope that none of these get lost in the overall programs that are so good.
Thank you, Donna. I was focused on the second. The first comment was, sorry. I was focused on the second.
What was the first comment?
The first half of that, Donna, I'm sorry.
Surveys.
Oh, the surveys, yes. Yeah, right, yes, 100%. So we have taken the feedback from the resident surveys, from our conversations with our resident leadership around what's important to them, the strategic planning work, which has had input from a number of stakeholders. Absolutely, those have deeply informed these changes, is the input that we've received from residents, from families, from staff, and we're continuing to do the survey. Let me put in a little plug for the survey. Thank you for that opportunity. So we did the big survey toward the end of last year through We Care Connect, which is our survey provider, and we're going forward. We mentioned this at the time, but just want to remind folks that we're not going to have that big slug of survey again. What we are doing is you'll get a survey on your move-in anniversary date. So that will come in pieces. So if you get something from We Care Connect, That is legitimate. And that will start up in the next month or so, I believe, because we're almost at the 6-month point since we had the survey. So just please keep your eyes out for that. And we'll try to remind people through the beacon and other communication materials. But we'll continue to tweet based on the feedback. So thanks for the reminder there. And in terms of things getting lost, I actually think that our intention is just the opposite, is to say that, you know, for example, the work that we do through George's team and the fitness center and the pool should be an integral part of our health and wellness approach across the campus, as should nutrition, as should you know, these exercise programs that we do. Our pastoral care is part of that. So it's really trying to make sure there's somebody who's taking an integrated look at health and wellness across the campus and connecting those dots rather than leaving them behind. So that is absolutely the intent. It's a great question.
Is there a financial remuneration? I mean, we have a new name on the door. Do we get a Bigelow on the floor? And you know, an increase in salary?
So we've tried to do this as efficiently as possible, and again, I think have created additional bandwidth and work without having to add staff, which again I think is a result of people willing to take on more. And so in some cases, a promotion has some salary implication to it, but it's not adding additional staff and all of the costs associated with that. So we do work with a compensation consultant to make sure that what we're paying our staff, which we've talked about in the past, is fair, because we've got great people, we want to keep them. So, but we have intentionally tried to do this as efficiently as possible and not adding staff.
Another clarification with regard to the roles of Annalise and Teresa. When you say compliance, do you mean also compliance with federal and state regulatory activities and that sort of thing? So that belongs to Teresa.
Yes, the answer to that is the compliance piece is Teresa. It's really given us that ability to self-audit before we have those individuals coming in. So yes, the answer to your question is yes.
That's another good question. All right, well, I know we have some other updates, so if there are no other questions on this, we'll stick around afterwards as always to answer them, but really appreciate your patience, support. If there are things that are coming up that are confusing or unclear, it's unintentional, but please let us know and we'll work to clarify those things as soon as possible. But again, really appreciate the support. So, and I think I'm turning it over to you next, Rob.
Yes, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the master planning process, but I want to pause there, and I would be remiss to not mention our CARE task force. So all of you know that we have a CARE task force that the operations committee that Carl Schoen heads. It has a task force that we're working on the CARE Phase 1 and CARE Phase 2. CARE is, Carl, help me out here, it is the Common Area Refresh and Enhancement.
You got it.
I was getting it there. So what we're looking at is our common areas and how we can refresh some of those. And a great area that you can look right now is the lobby in the Vincent Hall area. I think it's important that we talk about that CARE piece because that's what we're working on today for enhancing our common areas. And we're going to expand on that. I say that because when we start talking about master planning, and we've all said it, we've all heard master planning, and some of us have gone through this and some of us haven't. And I just want to take a minute and just talk a little bit about what master planning looks like. A lot of questions came up about the health and wellness and the program that we have around it. Master planning is going to look at today's programming. What do we offer, how do we offer it, and what type of level of consistency across the community? We're going to look at that. We're going to look at everything from the programming piece in every service line, whether it's nursing, health and wellness, dining, facilities, all service lines will be looked at to see what we can do to expand over the next 5 years. What will we need to expand? Does that mean additional staffing? Does that mean additional buildings? Does that mean renovating buildings? And that's really what the master planning process is looking at our amenities and our services that we have today and how can we expand them to be better in the future. And we're starting down that endeavor, and we've brought folks around the table. We've talked about this a little bit, that the master planning process, we really need someone to guide us, right? We're driving the bus, and you'll continue to hear me say we're driving the bus. We are behind the wheel on this. We drive our master planning process with input from our residents today, our future residents of tomorrow, our community, our staff, our board. We drive what we want to be into the future. An owner's rep, which we have solicited and have assigned, and they're on board with us now, they really are the GPS. They're guiding us through this process because they're subject matter experts in this. They do master planning and buildings for a living. So we want to bring those folks around the table. We have selected that individual. We've had our kickoff meeting last week, and they've asked us for a bunch of data. They're asking us for facility condition assessment and strategic planning and operational planning and financial studies, all to get to the point that we can have 3 deliverables in the next 12 months. Those 3 deliverables, one is the program. What is our current program and what is our future program? It really looks at our wants, our needs, and then it goes into what can we afford, right? And that's where our new CFO is going to be. We are going to be tied to the hip through this whole process of understanding what I want and how he can help me pay for it. And what we all want. I say that jokingly. It's what we all want. That's called a program of need. The second thing that we're really going to be looking at is a conceptual design. And it's a map of our community and what we're going to have and where it's going to be. And we don't have the answers to that right now. We need to go through this process. And then the third piece that we will have in the next 12 months is a real financial feasibility of, one, can we afford what we're going to purchase or buy? And 2, how is that going to add financial strength to us into the future? And that's what we're really looking for before we make any other decisions moving forward. Those are the 3 things that we're looking to. Over the next 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to be adding additional team members around our community to include an architect, a civil engineer, a land use attorney, and a smattering of other consultants to help us navigate through this master planning process. I think it's really important to point out that master planning is a 3 to 5 year journey that we're going to be on over this time frame. That does not stop what we're going to do in Care Phase 1 and Care Phase 2. As a matter of fact, the master planning will also add to some of the Care Phase 2 projects that we're planning to do. We're going to be able to identify some of the short-term goals that we'll have in master planning and execute them through the operations and care committee. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we are working parallel paths on multiple different fronts. Care Phase 1, which is curb appeal. Care Phase 2, which is a larger project in the Vincent Hall building, but also with the facility condition assessment. And then master planning. All working together, all going in the same direction. With that, I'll take any questions. Come on down, Rick. All the help I can get. Come on down. Please and thank you.
Rick has a question.
He doesn't have a question. Rick doesn't get questions. He only has answers.
This is real quick.
Rick Mazza, our CFO, very happy he's here.
So this isn't so much a question as just an observation. So, the partnership that we're forming here between operations and finance is essential to completing the strategic planning process effectively. So we have a good roadmap, but we've got to have, agreements. So, the idea from a finance viewpoint, you say, well, you're gonna pay for it. But the idea is to get the yes on as many things as we can that make sense, overlaying the strategic plan and our financial condition with it. We want to come out of this process as strong or stronger than we are, today. So the organization's on good footing with that. The only other thing I would offer is I've done these type of projects many, many years as a both consultant for KPMG and as a CFO. So the process today, plus where it's heading from this point in selecting a partner and all the things that will happen over the next 12, 15 months with things, it's completely ordinary. Ordinary might not be the best word. It's a tried and true process and method to get through this planning process. So it yields a predictable result, which is good because we call that enterprise risk management. We want to engage in processes that yield answers and strategies that will work with Vincent Hall. So I'm really happy to be part of it, that there's going to be great alignment, not only between Rob and I, but everybody that participates in the process, including all the outside consultants. That's all I'm with that.
It's a great addition to those comments of master planning. This is a team effort, and everyone around the table, we're gonna have to be all pulling in the same direction. So I'm very excited that Rick comes with that level of expertise in doing this. We had a question in the back. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. What is being done, planned to be done about light pollution? We have lights on all day on the sunniest days possible, and obviously that increases the residents' monthly fee. I would rather that money be spent on all these new consultants that sound important, but we've got to cut back on light pollution.
So light pollution is something that is high on, we'll say energy efficiency is high on both mine and the communities. And Rick, we've talked about this many times. What I'll say is let us get through our care phase 2 understanding of the facility condition assessment. And as a result of that, I'm almost 100% confident. And again, I've stood in front of you all and said I will not tell you something unless I'm 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure. But we're getting close to understanding that when we start replacing some of the lighting around here in the near short-term future, we are looking at energy efficient lighting as well as timers to reduce those light pollutions and to have automatic shutoffs for us. But again, we're a little bit away from that yet, and we're not 100% sure yet. But once we are, we will be out here screaming from the rooftops, I promise. We had a question up here. Yes, ma'am.
With all of these consultants, et cetera, that we are engaging, what's going to be the cost of that? And is it going to make a difference in what we need to have done around here, such as the 7-year refurbishing of apartments, et cetera?
So for master planning, we've got multiple different areas of where we're spending right now. The master planning was requested from the board and it was approved last board meeting, and it's a separate budget for this project. The other projects that we have, the care phase 1, the care phase 2, is also the facility condition assessment is another request that we'll have from the board. The 7-year refurbishment, that's already been budgeted, that's already in your capital budget, that's already there, it's already been approved. So there's not going to be any impact to your 7-year refurbishment. In our transition pieces, we need to get some of those back online and getting those moving.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Other questions? Let's get a softball.
Softball for you and Uncle Rick. I think, from those of us sitting here listening to this very good brief and so forth, one of the questions that does come into mind is that before planning would certainly not go out of control, I'm sure, under your leadership, is what is it that we could possibly afford in the future? In other words, looking at our revenue stream and so forth, there probably is a limit as to what we could possibly do in the future, given the financial market, borrowing power, et cetera, which would kind of bound, in a sense, what it is we could possibly do in the future. So I assume that that's being considered. For example, I'll use a stupid example. This is our first home, and we have 1-car garage, but we'd like to move into a 5-bedroom home with 2 swimming pools and a tennis court and 4 cars in the garage, but we may not be able to afford that. So reassure us that everything like that is under control.
I'm going to take the first piece and I'm going to give you this thing. I'm going to take the first piece of your question, and when we talk about the design getting out of control, we have very specifically put stipulations that the 3 deliverables are as a conceptual design. We will not go past conceptual design until we have the approval of the next steps. Along with those conceptual designs are those programs, and then that program is exactly what you said. It's our wants, our needs, and then a financial feasibility study that will tell us how we are going to pay for this. And again, that financial feasibility study is not just to pay for the project, but how we can come out financially stronger at the end. The rest of the finance stuff,
On the 5-bedroom house, it's just showed me the money. Anyway, that was a great movie. But anyway, the real answer to the question is this, and I think we've talked a little bit about this at Executive and Finance Committee. is that the financial analysis really needs to blend together two specific things. One is the existing debt capacity and the financial balance sheet strength of Vincent Hall Retirement Community. So, you know, the organization here has a certain level of debt that current operations can support through its revenues. So that's one factor that we'll look at. And the organization today is very liquid. It has over 500 days cash operating expenses on hand. What that means in just layman terms is if you never collected another dollar of revenue, you can continue to pay your bills for a year and a half based on the cash and reserves that you have. Obviously, nobody thinks about things that way, but bankers like to use metrics like that to judge and evaluate the financial strength of organizations. So as we together reinvest monies into the existing Vincent Hall Retirement Community, we can look at how that investment affects those financial strength and metrics. As we look at other opportunities to grow the campus, say for example, we want to construct additional independent living units, a similar type of analysis, however, that involves new debt. It involves pricing the product in the market that can be sold. But we largely get back to getting to revenue and entrance fee assumptions that reinforce or increase liquidity, but we don't borrow debt beyond what the revenues from that new construction can pay. So when I think about it financially, we try to work with a consultant to make those two data points converge and to make an overall assessment of whether or not it's a good decision or not a good decision financially. We work with Forvis, which used to be Dixon Hughes, large public accounting firm. They're local here for the audit, but the consulting group works out of Atlanta. Baker Tilly is another firm that does that work. I used to do that work for KPMG, so there's consultants that we can work with that will help us answer that. They will do financial projections. They'll do a compilation of those projections, which is kind of a low-level assurance report for other people looking at it, like management, maybe other consultants. As we vet these ideas and move down this 5-year pathway to, potentially a project and a new bond financing, those folks will be re-engaged periodically to look at what's changed, what's updated with construction costs, what's changed in the lending markets with interest rates, and so on and so forth. And the lenders will likely require a full feasibility study to do the financing, which means they get really granular, look at the assumptions under the forecast, and render an opinion as to whether or not the project's feasible. So that's kind of the process I see from soup to nuts. When Rob talks about 3 to 5 years, we'll look at an overall budget and a very high level, 90,000 foot view of feasibility early on at the end of this first phase. And then as you get architects engaged and start to refine programs and buildings and spaces, the budgets get a little bit more granular. You go back and refresh that information, and then you do the full feasibility study towards the end. So I think you probably get maybe 2 or 3 looks at it financially over the course of that time period. That's how I would see it going. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? These are great questions. With that said, I'm going to hand it off, I believe, to Michelle. Come on down. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Rob and Rick and Chip. I just have something really quick that I wanted to share with you that has absolutely nothing to do with master planning or reorganization. It has to do with my world, which is the Wounded Warriors on campus. I think a lot of you here know Kayla Saska, our Wounded Warrior, who's been here for, I think, since the beginning of February. As many of you may know, Kayla competed last year in the Warrior Games and the Invictus Games, and she has been selected again this year to compete in the Warrior Games and is currently training for it. She will compete in wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby, individual shot put, and individual discus, I believe. And what's really cool, that the games start, they occur over many days, and they start on June 21st. And what's really cool is we have our own in-house producer here, Sherm Egan, to help us get those games live streamed to our community, the ones that Kayla will be participating in. So we'll be able to watch her and cheer her on from afar. So I wanted to kind of share that with you. I also wanted to share that we have a new Wounded Warrior moving into our campus probably by the end of this month. We're still working out the details. But you will get to know him as well. His name is Tariq Whitaker. Tariq had a terrible motorcycle accident while serving in Bahrain. Not his fault, a lot of surgery. It took him about over a year of physical therapy to relearn to walk. And he's in the process of cycling out of active duty, going through his medical boards. He is extremely excited to come live with us. And his next chapter will be to study computer science at the University of Maryland. So he's looking forward to learning a lot about IT. And I keep thinking how great it might be to have him on our campus. This is a need of ours, so maybe there's some sort of a match made in heaven there as he gets going with his work. So I'll be introducing him when he arrives, but I wanted to let you know what's happening on the Wounded Warrior front. Any questions? Okay, that's it for me. Willis?
Ghislaine, I think you might be up next. Thanks, Michelle.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm Ghislaine Ayad, the Senior Director of Dining Services Department. And as a part of our role as a leadership team at Vincent Hall, we're looking for events to celebrate all our residents all year long. So next week, Dining Services will be celebrating the Armed Forces Week. And as a part of the celebration, Dining Services will be offering complimentary cocktails during the happy hours for all people who serve the following. Monday, May 13, people who served Army and National Guard. Tuesday, May 14, people who served Navy and Marine Corps. Wednesday, May 15, people who served Coast Guard. Thursday, May 16, people who served Air Force and Space Force. On Friday, May 17, a reception will follow to celebrate all services. Champagne and cake will be served to all attendees on Friday, 3 p.m. at the lounge area. Also, we'll have mocktail for the people who are trying to avoid alcohol all week long from Monday to Friday. And also, we'll have some fresh fruit for people who would like to avoid cakes. Any questions? All right, thank you so much.
Okay. And I'm back. I forgot something that I wanted to mention to you, sort of springboarding from what Ghislaine shared with us. Our friends at the Navy Officers Spouses Club reached out to us, and they wanted to do something for the military spouses in our community. So next week, on Thursday, in the Penthouse Lounge, they will be setting up a table and asked from 3 to 4 and asked if all military spouses could swing on by. They have flowers for you for military spouse appreciation. So I wanted to be sure to share that with you. We'll have something in the Beacon as well about it. And according to Rick Mazza, today is National Butterscotch Brownie Day.
Yesterday was National Coca-Cola Day.
And yesterday was National Coca-Cola Day, which our CEO is very, very happy to celebrate. That's it for my important report.
Anybody else from our team have any updates? Oh.
No, I would like to pass this on that last Saturday I had a birthday celebration with all my children, but also a couple from Singapore. They were so excited about our community here. They have nothing like this overseas. He happens to be in the government, so he was taking pictures all over the place, signing photographs. And the staff, the dining room staff, they were just amazed at the type of service that they gave us. They also just felt the community, just they were only here a couple of hours, but as I showed them around, they just felt a very warm community feeling. And they were really and truly excited about having this opportunity. So I just want to compliment our staff in general for what they did for visitors. It's the first trip to the United States, too. And they were only here for 10 days. So we made a tremendous impression on them. Thanks, Jim.
Great, thanks so much, Ms. Coetzee, and happy belated birthday to you as well. And I mean, that's a great note to end on. So we'll stick around if there are any additional questions for individuals, but it's getting towards noon and we want to make sure you can all get down and get your butterscotch brownie. So, thanks everybody, have a great day.